Right then, lads, welcome back to Kossi's Arsenal podcast. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Kossi. Welcome along to the first episode of the Super Arsenal podcast. We will be discussing a lot on this podcast on a daily basis, especially Arsenal opinions, news, debates, breaking news, and a couple of other things that really happen around Arsenal. Now, it's a show that I'll be doing once on a daily basis, and basically I'll be doing it just to include everything around Arsenal, opinions, news, breaking news, anything that, including your reactions on this podcast. So if you want to get your comments read out on the on one podcast, what you do is just comment down below on the podcast, and then on the next episode I will pick the most most interesting comments, and then we will react to them. It could be an opinion, you could give us a thought, you could give us a question, you could give us a topic, you could give us anything you want me to talk about or probably go through, and then I'll do just that. Make sure your comments are kept short and respectful. Thanks, everybody. So on today's episode, it's the first episode, but it's gonna be quite busy, and I have named this one the Super Arsenal podcast, basically because I think we need some kind of miraculous, super energy in the side. I don't want to be a negative fan, so I think Arsenal is still a super club. And why don't we have super podcasts around such a super club? So in this one, we're going to speak about Aaron Ramsdale and Leno, who should start for Arsenal. Ultimately, we will speak about Arsenal's best starting 11 for the season. Antonio Conte and wherever is going on. What on earth is going on with Arsenal and Antonio Conte? For me, it shows that there is a lot of pressure on Mikel Arteta. We will get into that. I have a lot of, I have so much lined up here. Alexander Isak, and Arsenal's quest for a new striker, probably something to talk about. The coming back of Thomas Partey, and a couple of other things. We will talk about Edu's interview, with Sky Sport. Everybody has talked about it, everybody has reacted to it, and I think it's it's high time, it's our time to go through it and probably make some sense about it. And finally, I also talk about the takeover. Like I said, if you want to get involved, the comment box is very open. Any of the topics you think deserve a comment, just let me know. So welcome aboard to the Super Arsenal podcast with me, Kossi. It's gonna be airing on your screens, on your phones, on your tablets, on your computers on a daily basis. Which I'm just trying to figure out the best time to air the podcast so that we don't miss anything in that in the podcast, especially that happens throughout the 24 hours till we record another on the next day. So where do we begin? Let's start off with Ramsdale and Leno debate. Now, the last time we had a goalkeeper debate, we lost a goalkeeper. I think that was Emi Martinez and Ban Leno. And of course, we had to lose one because Emi wanted to be first choice at Arsenal. Leno wanted to be first choice at Arsenal. And since then, there's been a lot of friction in this department. Apart from Arsenal bringing in Alexander Runarsson, who I think was an absolute disgrace of a signing. Not as a person, but as a signing. But away from that, Leno, Emi Martinez. That was when Arsenal had some of the best goalkeepers, in the league, one backing the other. Of course, Emi wanted to be number one. The loyalty he had given the club, he thought this is high time I get to be rewarded. This is high time I get to be number one. I think I'm better than Leno. And of course, when he was given the chance, he took it. That's why many Arsenal fans do believe it was a little bit unfair for Emi Martinez to leave the club. And probably yes or no, they were right or they were wrong. Because one, for almost a decade, 10 years, Emi Martinez had failed to break through. He had failed to rise through the likes of Vita Manone, the likes of Fabianski. They had broken through, and he had failed to get his breakthrough until of recent, when he was around 27, 28. So maybe there was a doubt. Maybe he wasn't good enough, in the first place. But I don't want to go into that debate now. Ultimately, after his departure, Arsenal looked for a good backup. Of course, we brought in the likes of Matt Ryan, we brought in the likes of Runason, and subsequently we got one in Aaron Ramsdale. £24 million. There is a lot of question marks around the arrival of Aaron Ramsdale. Many people are believing and still thinking Ramsdale coming to Arsenal means Leno could be leaving the club. Now, I cannot really put all my eggs in one basket and say that is the case, but hiring a 24 million goalkeeper as backup for me doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Unless otherwise, but it doesn't really make sense for a club that is struggling financially like Arsenal. If you cannot buy a midfielder, if you cannot buy a decent right back, if you cannot buy a decent goal scoring midfielder, then you spend 24 million pounds on a backup goalkeeper. That is something that doesn't really get down, and it doesn't make sense for me unless it makes sense for you. So I think at the end of the day, we could see Aaron Ramsdale take over Ben Leno's position at Arsenal. And I'm saying at the end of the day, we could see. It's not ultimate, it's not confirmed, but I think Ramsdale's price tag speaks volumes. And with the reports now that Aaron Ramsdale has told his pals and friends that he thinks Mikel Arteta will actually turn to him, after Leno getting smoked 5 goals against Manchester City, that he feels believes Mikel Arteta will actually turn to him as number one choice. For me, it speaks volumes. The trust between the bond of trust between Leno and the fans is broken. There's so many fans who feel who still feel Leno is a good goalkeeper, including me. And there's also very many fans who believe Leno is actually a disgrace, including some of you out there. But the truth is, should Leno be dropped? That's the big question. Should we drop Leno? Has it come to that extent that Leno becomes second choice and Aaron Ramsdale becomes first choice? We know how desperate Arsenal is, and we know the amount of pressure the manager is on. He's gonna have to make these rushed decisions, like drop Leno and bring in Aaron Ramsdale, which could be called for, or which could be a perfect example of a manager making a mistake under pressure. Because without any doubt, we know there is a big amount of pressure on Mikel Arteta. So do you pull the plug on Leno? Do you just feel like, you know what, Leno, you've done enough, but not good enough, so rest, let newcomer Aaron Ramsdale take over? Is it time? Because for me, I feel like if Arsenal can organize their defense, the amount of experience, the level of experience, the level of pedigree that Leno has, the amount of games he's played on a big stage, could also command something big, probably because for me, he's a goalkeeper that can give you 15 to 20 points in a campaign. And we saw that against Manchester City. We could have, it could have been 8 goals, it could have been 9 goals. It was Leno coming to the rescue of Arsenal every time, now and again. We saw that against Chelsea. It should have been 3-0. But we looked at how Leno stood his ground against Romelu Lukaku's header. And I think that was still another perfect example of why I think Leno deserves to be Arsenal's number one. Now, I do not have a problem with Aaron Ramsdale. And you know how much potential I see in Aaron Ramsdale if you've been following this, this channel for some time. But I just don't feel like that should be the way we transition. I just don't feel like we should just throw out Leno because we got a newbie, because we like things that glitter as fans, and there is nothing better than having a new signing, whether a goalkeeper or a striker. There's nothing better than having a new signing that just comes in and gets their thing done, gets into the squad, has their impact. Every fan wants that. You want your new signing to be the hero. Is it time to drop ban Leno? In my opinion, I think correct the defense. That defense is leaking goals. Avoidable goals. Let's get rid of the avoidable goals. If Leno still costs us points at the end of that, then I'm sorry, kick him out. But at the beginning of the season, however much many people would want to blame Leno, kick him out, at times I feel like we are we're being too harsh on ban Leno. If you look at the goals we consider against Manchester City, free headers, free crosses, unopposed crosses from Sid Kolasinac and Kian Tierney's side, free headers from Ike Gundogan. What would Leno do in that instance? I don't know. So Ramsdale, taking the piece and just coming out and saying, I think they're gonna choose me over Leno. Well, it could be that he is a good goalkeeper and he believes in himself and he wants to create this kind of environment where Leno feels pressured. But I think it's not time to pull the plug, and I'll stand by Leno for some time. If we do not push out Xhaka, if we are not pushing out Mikel, I think Leno should stay as well. So Leno is my number one for now. Who is your number one? Let me know in the comments below, and I would love to get in your thoughts, obviously, on the next podcast. If you get in the best comments in the next podcast, why not? I'll love to get in your comments in the comment section. Now, away from that, Thomas Partey is returning, and Charles Watts is more than convinced that Thomas Partey will have an involvement in the Arsenal-Norwich game. Now, what is not confirmed is whether he will be playing in that game or on the bench, but he will be involved. That's according to Charles Watts. He says he will be involved whether on the bench or directly into the game. Now, let's speak about Thomas Partey's injury record before we go into what should be our best pivot this season. The couple of things I've been looking at around, Partey's injury. This is a player who was definitely not injury prone before coming to the Premier League. And that is what I do not understand when he starts getting injury prone at Arsenal. Are we doing something wrong? Are we rushing him back? Are we putting a lot of pressure on him? Because we know in that midfield, at the end of the day, he is the best player. He is the only piece of diamond, the only piece of gold Arsenal have. So rushing Thomas Partey back is a mistake. We know that. But at the end of the day, Mikel is under pressure, and he has always been under pressure, including last season. That's why he always rushes him back. He always, whenever Partey is fit, a little bit of fitness, you've got to play Partey. You've got to come back. That is how desperate we are. And I think we will get to Edu, but I think Edu is a little bit of a disgrace. With Thomas Partey picking up these injuries, we know one of the solutions that we could do is getting a central midfielder that can at least operate without Thomas Partey. In the absence of Thomas Partey, you could get in someone. If you do not want to get someone who's because in Edu's interview he says he doesn't need to. They deemed it irresponsible to get in a central midfielder, yet they believe Xhaka and Partey are going to be the midfield pivot. But at the end of the day, he talks about backup. You need a decent backup, right? You need someone to back up the lads. And I think the reason that's why Partey is picking up all these injuries is there's a big gap, there is a big hole in the Arsenal midfield whenever Partey is away. And when he comes back, the Arsenal midfield seems to stabilize and get back to normal. But the question, and the big question, is when do you have to bring back Partey back? Are we actually forcing his injuries? Are we contributing more and more to his inconsistency in the side? But just what says Partey is most likely to be back against Norwich. That is a very good boost for Mikel Arteta and Arsenal as a side, because we have already said our best 11 is not here. We are losing games without our best 11. So Partey coming back is a big boost. One, we get to welcome back one of our senior members in the squad, but also the most important member and element in the midfield. I think Thomas Partey is the most important element in Arsenal's midfield. So let's talk about it then. If Arsenal then, if we get Thomas Partey back, of course we know what we are getting. We're getting a player who's gonna link our play. We're getting a player who's gonna help us at least control the mobility of the game. We're getting back a player who's getting us, who's helping us, do a lot of hard work and thinking in the midfield. There is no question about that. Then the question now turns to the second page. What is Arsenal's best midfield duo? What is our best midfield duo? How should we line up with Thomas Partey? Because at the end of the day, I still look at it and I'm like, if Arsenal think they can be top 5, they can be top 6, we've got to find our best 11 and we've got to find our best partnerships. Because for me, midfield duos it's all about partnerships. Defensive duos, it's all about defensive partnerships. We could think about Gabriel and Ben White, and they don't work out, and they just don't work out. If they do not work out, you don't force them. You get in the best midfield duo. The best defensive duo. It's the same thing with our midfield. What is our defensive duo? What is our best midfield duo? Is it Thomas Partey and Granit Xhaka? Is it Thomas Partey and Aubameyang Lokonga? Or is it Thomas Partey and Mohamed Elneny? Because last season, we did see the best of Mohamed Elneny against Manchester United and against Leicester City when they were playing with Thomas Partey. Mohamed Elneny had more freedom, to go forward, more freedom to pass the ball, and a lot of confidence on the ball. Could Thomas Partey and Mohamed Elneny be our best midfield duo? Now, it doesn't make sense for you, especially to your ears, and I understand that. But it could be that they're our best defensive duo, and we've got nothing to do about it. If they are, definitely we've got nothing to do about it. We just need to support them, right? Look. It would be absolutely crazy for me to think that Elneny and Partey are our defensive duo, our best midfield pivot. Because I think in that, Mohamed Elneny doesn't do a lot of work when Thomas Partey is on the pitch. It's more like a disguise. Partey is doing a lot of work, and of course it makes Mohamed Elneny look too good and so good. So we can conclude that Mohamed Elneny really does well with Thomas Partey. But at the end of the day, if you look at the output, Mohamed Elneny actually does too much, too little when he's playing with Thomas Partey, as compared if he played with a player like Aubameyang Lokonga or Granit Xhaka, because Xhaka doesn't offer a lot, especially in terms of donkey work. What you have is you bring out a lot of hard work from Mohamed Elneny, and you're gonna have this, you're gonna have him run tirelessly. You're gonna have him run from point A to point B all the time. So probably Partey and Elneny, they look good together, but I don't think they're our best midfield duo. Partey and Xhaka, could it be Partey and Xhaka our best midfield duo? Now, right from day one, I never believed that Partey and Xhaka are our best midfield duo. What Xhaka does is he forces Thomas Partey into a CDM role. Now, I don't think Partey wants to be a CDM. I also don't think Partey fits well into the CDM role. I think Partey wants to be a a little bit more advanced central midfielder or central defensive midfielder, a little bit more advanced, and Xhaka doesn't actually allow him to do that, because when you have Xhaka on the pitch, you literally have Xhaka as your CM, you have Xhaka as your central midfielder. Partey then becomes the defensive midfielder, and I don't think Xhaka provides us better than what Partey would provide us with if Partey played as the CM. So I would love to see Partey play as a CM, probably for a couple of games. Try to see him dribble in the midfield, dribble more, create more chances, or try to switch play more. That means if you have Partey as your CM, you will need to have a very good DM, and I think we do have a very good DM in the side, in the squad, and that is none other than Obasanjo Lokonga. So for me, look, this is not anything like a confirmation bias, like anyone would think, oh, because he has a confirmation bias on Obasanjo Lokonga. He said he's his best signing, and now he says he should be playing in the pivot with Thomas Partey. I do respect the age of Obasanjo Lokonga. He's 21 and new in the league, new to the Premier League. So it would be a little bit harsh for me or anyone to just throw him under the bus and say Obasanjo Lokonga is now Arsenal's new CDM. But we've got nothing to do. If you're playing players and selecting them off the merit button, then we know that Obasanjo Lokonga is the best CDM we have in the side. Not Partey, not Xhaka, not Mohamed Elneny, not Ainsley Maitland-Niles. Forget Ainsley. Forget I talked about Ainsley. So for me, the best pivot could be Obasanjo Lokonga, because he's got the patience. He's got the patience. He's got that kind of patience where he just sits back, waits for things to happen, and then he takes action. He's good at dribbling. He's also very disciplined in the midfield. Helps us win the ball back, gives it to Thomas Partey, and Partey can do the rest. So I think Lokonga, Partey, we will have our time in the Premier League to see this midfield duo. I definitely have no doubts about that. But the little time we saw this midfield duo in preseason, I was impressed. Smash a like on the video if you're impressed, and let me know if you think Xhaka Partey is our midfield pivot, or Lokonga Partey is our midfield pivot, or Partey Elneny is our midfield pivot. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks everybody. Thanks for doing that. Right, we've got to move on from that. And the other thing I'd like to discuss is Antonio Conte. Now, there's so many rumors, and there's so many. There is a lot of talk on Antonio Conte. Actually, the last two podcasts I've done on this channel have been dominated by Antonio Conte, in and out, yes or no. Last night, Fabrizio Romano came out and confirmed that there is nothing between Arsenal and Antonio Conte. There is nothing like you would call a pre-agreement. There is no pre-agreement between Arsenal and Antonio Conte. And I was not surprised, because, yes, I did the story that Arsenal had a pre-agreement with, in principle, with Antonio Conte. Everybody did. Many podcasts did that. So I don't want people to come and slam me on my podcast. Oh, Kosi, you a liar. You said we had agreed a deal in principle for Antonio Conte. Shut up. That was from Todo Fijajes. And if you read a lot around Arsenal, Team Talk, I did provide a source. I told you Team Talk did that. Todo Fijajes was the original source. And I told you, if you want to trust Todo Fijajes, do trust them. I do not trust them. I only did an initiative of bringing what was on the table. And I'm going to calm down. Right. So, it appears there is no pre-agreement between Arsenal and Antonio Conte. His agent just revealed that. And Fabrizio Romano also revealed that. Arsenal do not have a pre-existing agreement between them and Antonio Conte. Sorry if I misled you. I was misled as well. I was clickbaited, and so sorry for that. So I'll try to double check my facts or cross check my facts before I do the next podcast. Thanks everybody. Right. So I I would love though to speak about a little bit about Antonio Conte. The last time I talked about Antonio Conte was, would Arsenal be able to attract Antonio Conte? And that's the big discussion. His agent says there is no pre-agreement in principle. There is no agreement in principle for Conte to join Arsenal. And that much now we know. There is no agreement for us to bring Conte home. So is Antonio Conte coming home at the moment? No. But we know there is a lot of pressure on the shoulders of Mikel, not from the board, not from the Cronkies, but from the media. If you look at the amount of, if you look at the nature of questions that are being asked of Mikel Arteta in press conferences, you feel there is pressure exerted on Mikel and the fans as well. It's not like last season where you never had fans in the stadium. Now fans are back in the stadium. When you go away from home, you're gonna travel with fans. When you are playing at home, you're gonna play in front of fans. The Norwich game, the Brighton game, all the games are coming. You're gonna have fans. So there is more pressure now on Mikel, than there was last season. But Antonio Conte, could he ever take up the Arsenal job? Let's be a little bit more realistic. Let's go step by step. One, Conte left Inter Milan after winning the Scudetto with them, and they had a better side. Now, I've seen someone in my comments who said, Kosi, we have a better squad than Inter Milan had last season. If I could ask you to just tell me five players you remember in that squad, probably you do not know many of them. Now look, if we just try to compare the Inter Milan of last season and Arsenal of this season, we are still behind. We are absolutely behind. There are two damn good strikers. They were like demigods. Lautaro Martinez and Romelu Lukaku. They were like gods, and they were just like goal machines. That is what Antonio Conte wants. He wants every department to have quality that delivers. He had a midfield of the likes of Nico Barella that was just lit. He had a good goalkeeper in Samila Nenovic, and he had a good defense as well. Why Antonio Conte left Inter Milan is in glass. It's like plain glass. Everyone, it's there for anyone to see. Why he left Inter Milan is because he thought they are no longer sharing his ambitions. They are no longer sharing his dreams. They are no longer on the same page, and that's why he left Inter Milan. They decided to sell Romelu Lukaku after selling Achraf Hakimi as well, and they were willing to sell more and more and more. He told them, you know what? I built this squad. We have a very good squad here. We can win the Scudetto. We can defend the Scudetto. We can win it for the second time in a row. They told him, you know what? Screw the Scudetto. We have a big financial problem. We can't stand it. We are gonna sell the players. He decided to leave because he doesn't want to be close. He doesn't want to associate himself with clowns. If you have decided to act like a proper football club, act like one. That's what he told Inter Milan, and he left. If you want to act like a proper football club, act like one. Right now, we expect him to sign up for a club, Arsenal Football Club, that is not even acting like a proper football club. A merchandise machine that produces Arsenal kits all the time, and for fans to buy. That is what Arsenal is. Will Antonio Conte, what kind of ideas are we going to sell to Antonio Conte? Like, look, we have Odegaard, we have Saka, we have Smith Rowe. Yes, they are very good talents, but what do I have to do with these kids? Because that is the question he's gonna ask Edu or whoever is gonna try to employ him. what am I supposed to do with this bunch of kids? Do I win a league with them? No. Do I go to top 4 with them? Do I go to Champions League with them? No. Are you going to back me? We have just spent 156 million on the current squad. Sorry, we can't give you more money. What's going to happen? Can we, it's so far away from, I'm so different. It's so different from the deluded Kosi that we always know that just comes and gives us updates to make us happy. It's now a little bit being realistic. Can we please Conte? Can we meet the demands of Antonio Conte? And that really for me answers the big question. We are keeping Mikel Arteta because the parameters that we have set, not so many managers would work. Probably you're gonna go for a Graham Potter. So don't be very surprised if Mikel succumbs to the pressure. We sack him. He fails and we sack him, and then you get someone like Graham Potter from Brighton. And many Arsenal fans are pointing to Graham Potter from Brighton because they know deep down Arsenal will never hire a Zidane or an Antonio Conte. They do not want to associate themselves with failure, and they will simply not associate themselves with failure. That's it. So I'm not really saying Arsenal is failure, but being 20th at the bottom of the league, you need a manager who believes in a squad. Does Antonio Conte really believe in our current squad? Is it a manager that really feels our current squad can go somewhere? Or is he just a manager who comes in to win things and go? Because for me at the moment, we need a manager that institutes a philosophy in the squad. Conte can't do that. But we also need a manager who will believe just like these kids believe. That's it. You need a manager that's gonna have these kids believe in themselves. Believe that there is something. Because when you look into Arsenal at the moment, there is nothing. Kids, it's just a bunch of kids that have been promised, to do well. That have been, they don't know whether they should trust what they've been told. They don't know whether, they don't know whether they've been, woodwinked into believing that there is a project. Just like many Arsenal fans. If you ask me, is there a project that's going on at Arsenal? I don't know. So it has been said that we have a big project at Arsenal Football Club. What exactly the fuck is going on in there? We do not know. You do not know. So, will Antonio Conte inspire? Is it because anyone who comes at Arsenal Football Club at the moment is getting a squad with an average age of 23, 22, 24. You have to inspire them before you can crack their heads into, I want this. You have to do this for me. They're kids. They're a bunch of kids. They even don't know what winning is like. They just want to win, but winning is just a fantasy. It's more like rain dropping down, and it is, what? Beer, wine. It's like you just wake up one day and it is raining wine. That's what they feel when, it comes to winning. They have done it with Mikel, and they do have that little belief. So if you're going to sack Mikel, you've got to bring in someone who believes. Does Antonio Conte believe in these kids? I don't know. I absolutely don't know. We could be craving for Antonio Conte because we want to win the league, but does our squad really win the league? Does our squad really win the league? And is it even good for top 4? I don't know. Probably you guys could give me the answers down in the comments below, right? I spoke about Conte because I thought there was a lot to speak about Antonio Conte as well, right? So I'll be moving on, and where should we go? The Arsenal takeover. The Arsenal takeover. I would love to discuss the Arsenal takeover as well. Tom Canton, the beautiful writer, at Football.London, one of the best writers, by the way, when it comes to, Arsenal content. Apparently, he's been given a job at an opening at Football.London, and I really love it. I really love it. Congratulations to you, my man, Tom Canton. I really love you so much, and I really love your work. So what Tom did was to talk about the Arsenal takeover, and in particular the Qatar takeover. He spoke to one of the journalists or specialists that do understand Qatar football, and it was kind of an assessment. Can it happen? Can the Qataris can they buy Arsenal? Yes, they have found themselves much linked to football. They love football. They're much interested now in getting into football. They're owning a couple of football projects around Europe, even outside Europe. But can they really buy Arsenal? So like I said, credit to Football.London. This is not my work. Credit to Football.London, as well as credit to my man Tom Canton at the Gunner Talk. So if you want to have better reads, you could check him out at the Gunner Talk. He has very good reads, by the way, very, very good reads, and that's why I really read his work. Great reads there. So he said, he titled the article, "The Qatari Takeover, the Reasons Behind a Social Media Hype Train Giving False Hope to Arsenal Fans," by Tom Canton, Arsenal fan, brand writer, and presenter. All right. Thank you so much, Tom. The Arsenal fans' relationship with owners Stan Kroenke and Josh Kroenke of KSE is fractious, to say the least. Protests have been regular in number, but inconsistent in attendance, owing to lack of organization. The calls for a takeover are many, but the likelihood of such an occurrence is very, very slim. The last genuine attempt to buy the Gunners came earlier this year as Daniel Ek, CEO of Spotify, proposed an offer believed to be in the region of 1.8 billion. That was knocked back back with a Swedish entrepreneur detailing that Josh Kroenke had simply replied, "We do not need the money." Yet another 8th placed finish, and the animosity between the fans, especially on social media, and the Kroenke family has never been greater. Right. So therefore, when a verified account of the former Qatari president of Club Al Arabi, Khalif bin Ahmad Al Thani, began tweeting cryptic messages about the Arsenal, it sent large proportions of the Arsenal fan base into a meltdown of pleas for it to be true. Okay, he makes sense. The fan brands team recently spoke to Qatari football expert Mitch Freely and Ahmed Hashim, who both concurred this was most likely a social media ploy. Freely described it all for a show. All right. However, this has not stopped supporters from continuing to hope for a bid, and therefore further investigation into the likelihood of an Arsenal Qatari takeover was necessary. Thank you, Tom. Speaking to Ben Jacobs, a sports journalist with years of experience or expertise, just to be specific, in the field, the fan brands team learned of several reasons as to why such a takeover would not happen. Jacobs opens by firstly breaking down the blunt reality of a fanfare spawned from what is simply a tweet on social media. All right. The promoted stories were the main reason a Qatari takeover of Arsenal won't happen is there is no substance to the talk beyond a glib tweet from Sheikh Khalifa bin Ahmad Al Thani, explains Jacob. He does have royal links and is the former president of Al Arabi. So there is some football pedigree there too, right? So the lad actually that wants to kick out the Cronkies, or that tweeted that he wants the Cronkies out, is a former president of Qatar club Al Arabi. However, football expertise, or football expert, not expertise really, says it's more like this kind of takeover is more on social media than in reality. Well, I don't want to use the word hoax, because the last time I used the word hoax, many of you really attacked me. But the truth is, it could be a hoax. Could be a hoax. So Jacob says, yet he has nowhere near the personal wealth to buy Arsenal. Any takeover would also go through Qatar Sports Investments, and if Al-Thani knew of or was part of such a bid, he wouldn't be tweeting cryptic clues. Okay. Qatar Sports Investment are very secretive and rarely allude to investments until they are 100% done. The second insight is a bitter pill of Arsenal supporters to hear, however, is bluntly true. Arsenal's value as a club is arguably the worst it has been since KSE became involved in 2007. There is no real value in buying Arsenal, Jacob says. Come on, that's the least I expected. That is the least expected. But it is also true, guys, it's also true. It could be true that Arsenal's value does not attract people to buy it. Because since 2007, 2006, Arsenal made it to the UEFA Champions League final. 2007, we died. The Cronkies get involved, and we died. Since then, Arsenal's value, both in picture and probably in stocks, has been dying out. If Jacob says there is no reason, there is no real value in buying Arsenal, probably he makes some sense. And maybe this is the reason as to why Kroenke doesn't want to invest in the club, because it feels like it's already been eaten up and it's beyond recover. It's beyond repair. I don't know. But that's what football expert says, and it says a prospective Qatari owner would be inheriting a strong but relatively restrictive brand for what they would want us to use, to use it for, and ultimately paying way above the odds. Stan Kroenke seemingly wants at least 2.15, that is 2.15 billion. So would stand to make a cool 1.1 billion profit if successful. No Qatari investor, no group like Qatar Sports Investment would pay that kind of price simply for vanity's sake. For that kind of money, they would want to inherit a side capable of qualifying regularly and quickly for the Champions League, and they would expect to inherit a team built for Europe rather than have to spend millions more in order to get there. Costly squad rebuilding on top of an inflated sale price would put off Qatar investments. It makes no business sense to pay such a humongous price with no guarantees of short-term success. Thank you so much. Well said. We should say well done. It looks like the Qataris will not buy Arsenal because the deal doesn't make sense for them. It doesn't make sense for them. And I'm not really surprised why the deal doesn't make sense for them, because Tom Canton puts it very clear that at the moment it looks like Arsenal has lost its value. We have gone down, and the Kroenkes would want anyone to overpay so that they can get out of the ship. They just want to jump out of it without making any losses, so they would want around 2.15 billion. the club's worth is currently the club's real worth is around 1.1 billion actually. So they would make a crazy profit of 1.15 billion and they would flee, they would run. Now the Qataris are saying, in their sense, it would make no sense to buy a club that at the moment is set up to fail. It's absolutely on the brink of failure. They are not close to going back to Champions League. They're not close to going back to anywhere. They cannot even win the FA Cup. Why would we buy them? Why would we spend 2 billion? Oh, sorry. But I'm sorry, it makes a lot of sense for me now. It just makes a lot of sense for me. And Tom says maybe many clubs would not actually agree to the idea of Arsenal being taken over by the Qataris. The guy that is, really doing a lot of, crypto talking, cryptic tweeting on Twitter, does not even have the money to buy Arsenal Football Club. He doesn't have the money, and if he had to buy the money, he has to go through Qatar Sports Investment, which does not see any value in investing in the mighty Arsenal Football Club. It's interesting, isn't it? At the end of the day, Arsenal get to be in the mud. I'm flirting. I'm absolutely flirting. But it makes more sense. Arsenal will never be owned by the Qataris, especially if the Cronkies feel like 2.15 billion is the money the Qataris want to pay or have to pay. It's out. It's out. It's out of the picture. It's out of the picture. Well explained by the remarkable man at Football London. Give them a read, but make sure you follow Tom Canton. I do not have a blog. I'm not really into writing. I do love writing, and I'm a very good writer. Trust me when I tell you on that. But I just don't feel like I don't want to be writing on international scene. So I'm gonna be doing my own podcast and blog called Focus on Africa. And it's not gonna be called Focus on Africa. It's gonna focus on Africa. And I'll do anything focusing on Africa. And I think because I'm in Africa, I'll get more time to just meet a few people, get the opinions, and things like that. Because I'm very close to one of the best universities in the world, Makerere University. So probably I could just get professors, speak about issues, and it would make more sense for me, right? So please give Tom Canton a read. He writes, he has a blog. I don't know. It's called 101 Great Goals, I think. But follow him on YouTube. He has a very, very great podcast as well. It's called The Guna Talk. Right. So away from the Guna Talk and the Arsenal takeover that will eventually collapse before happening, let's move over to Edu and his ridiculous interview that he had with Sky Sport. Now, many Arsenal fans still do believe that Edu needs to go. This interview that he made with Sky Sport will make the situation worse or better. I don't know. It will depend on where you stand with Edu, Mikel, Vinay, Kroenke, and probably the Project Young Arsenal. It looks like the Project Young Arsenal was proposed by Edu and Mikel Arteta. We do not know at this point in time why they decided to go for such a project, but probably after this interview, we will know why the two lads decided to go for Project Young Arsenal rather than pushing back Arsenal to the top. Did they get afraid of recruiting older players that could challenge Mikel Arteta? Edu was speaking to Sky, and this is what he absolutely had to say. Edu's exclusive interview, Arsenal transfer policy, his technical director role, and Mikel Arteta discussed. In an exclusive interview with Sky Sports, Arsenal technical director Edu defends the club's transfer policy after their poor start to the season and talks about his own role and that of Mikel Arteta. All right. This would be interesting to read, and I would love to read it. Okay. With Arsenal bottom of the Premier League, Technical Edu gives a rare interview to Sky Sports and talks about the club's maligned transfer policy. Mikel Arteta and more. Right. The Gunners have endured their worst start of the league since 67 years prop up the table and have come under fire for the perceived quality of their signings, not just this summer, but across a number of years at the Emirates Stadium. All right. It was barely 2 seasons ago the club missed out on a Champions League return by a solitary point, and were runners up in the Europa League with this. Where this year they are out of European football of any sort for the first time since 1995. Now, the last time Arsenal were out of any sort of European football, I was not conceived. I was not conceived because 1995 I wasn't conceived. I was conceived in 1996. And was born in 1997 January. So that is more than 2 decades ago when I was born, and it's more than 2 decades ago when Arsenal last appeared out of. It's like we were swallowed by the Bermuda Triangle because we were nowhere close to the scene on the radars. All right. So Edu, who played for the club between 2001 and 2005, returned 2 years ago in his present role, and here he gives Sky Sports the case for his and Arsenal's defense in an exclusive interview. All right. So he did the interview with Geoff Shreves. And the first question was, what can you tell me about Arsenal's transfer window and the thinking behind it? The club has spent the most money on of any Premier League club, but Arsenal fans are underwhelmed. So this is how we spent top 5. Are they top 5, top 6, top 7 clubs in the transfer window? Arsenal spent a remarkable 156.8 million pounds. Followed by United at 133.7, followed by Manchester City at 100 million, followed by Chelsea at 97 million, buying Romelu Lukaku and bringing in Saul Niguez on a loan deal, which I think was pretty much good business. They have let go of Kat Zuma, and that means they have a little bit closed their gap in the pocket. Good business by Chelsea. Aston Villa, they have spent 93 million after getting a remarkable 100 million from Manchester City, and they reinvested in the squad. They brought in players like Emi Buendia, Leon Bailey, and Danny Ings. Right, and then West Ham, who have actually spent 63 million. Now, the truth is, I don't know how West Ham spent the 63 million, but all I know is that they are good. Like, they are really good. So that is how our clubs have spent. The top 6 clubs to spend the most amount of money, topped by Arsenal, Manchester United, and the 2 clubs in Manchester United and City. Edu answering that, answering about what he thinks about our transfer window. He said, yes, I understand the reason, because firstly, they have not seen the team playing together yet. That's one of the reasons, but I think we have to see the wider context than just to see the money around it. We signed 6 players who are under 23. Well, we didn't tell you to sign players under 23, which means a lot in terms of our planning. Normally, people like to see just one window, so I have to say it's the bigger picture, because we started planning this squad a year ago in terms of consolidating the team and trying to get better, and try to get a better foundation. Okay. It says, if you remember, in that period, we renewed Bukayo Saka's contract, and apparently Bukayo Saka's contract runs down in the next 2 years, Edu. and Gabriel Martinelli a year ago with the intention to get that kind of base in the team. In a 1 year period, we signed 10 players, and 7 of the 10 are under 23. We renewed 7 players in this period as well, just in the first team. 5 of the 7 are under 23 as well. So we are running 2 projects of under 23 at this fucking club, aren't we, Edu? Right. So he said also as well that why did we do that? Because we have a reason to try to create a good foundation, and then one day maybe we are going to sign 1 or 2 players only. But after that, it's impossible to sign. But after that, it's impossible to sign 1 or 2 players only, because we have to do a lot. Because we have a lot to do. We have to balance the squad better. We have to recruit the players with the right characteristics, the right profile to make the squad better, more solid, and much more consistent, because last season we suffered with consistency. Now I want to give Mikel Arteta and the board a much better squad. Now, when you say you want to give us a much better squad, we understand when you speak about it, because we have been fucking asking for a better squad all our lives. But how come we do not have a central midfielder in our quest to get a better squad? How come we do not have a better right back in our quest to get a better squad? How come we don't have a better goal scoring midfielder? They could be under 23. We do not argue with you, Edu. You have decided to go with project under 23. You could get Kamavinga. He's under 23 probably, isn't he? You could get who around? Getting anyone who's under 23, but get the job done. You failed at that. But he says he wants to give us a better squad. That's what he says. So if you look at the players that we have signed and their age, Takehiro Tomiyasu, £19.8 million, is 22 years of age. Aaron Ramsdale is 23 years of age, £30 million. Martin Odegaard is 22 years of age, £34 million. Ben White is 23 years of age, £15 million. Sambi Lokonga is 21, as well as Nuno Tavares as well. Anderlecht, Sambi joins us from Anderlecht for £15 million. Fucking hell, this is not 15. How did they do this? I mean, I thought, okay, this is what we paid up front. Wow, wait. This is guaranteed payments. We are paying 30 for Aaron Ramsdale, guaranteed payments. Okay, all right. Nuno Tavares, £8 million, and Sambi Lokonga, £15 million. That is how we spend our money, right? Okay, and GS says it's clear. It's clear there is a shift in transfer policy in terms of buying young players that have the value in the future. Is that because previously the transfer dealings have been poor? You've been left with players on high wages with no selling value, unlike the case of Willian, his contract was terminated. Has that been a factor in your thinking with this new policy? It's a great question. And Edu says, yes, if you see, we have 21 players exit over the year. Okay, all of those were terminated, or we tried to sell, or we tried to loan, or we, with an obligation to buy. We tried to clear a bit of the squad and bring in some new faces. We had 21 outgoings and signed 10 players in 1 year. So 21 changes. It is a lot. It's more. He says it's more than a squad in 1 year. But this was the intention. Again, when we are talking about the base and the foundation, we have to create it again to one day just go and sign 1 or 2 players. All right. Another question from Shreves. The problem with that for many Arsenal fans is, let's say from the next the 6 new signings you made, probably only 2 of them would go straight into the first team. So how much has this window improved Arsenal's first team right now? It's a good question, isn't it? Really good question. Edu, you see the strategy for every single name I can explain to you the reasons. Aaron Ramsdale, for example, he's a very good football player and he has the potential to be a big part of the team in the future. Gia says for the future. Edu says for the future of the team. What he wants to do is to balance. He wants to do is to balance that position, and why do you bring him in? We already have one player there to play games with Leno, but we have to bring in someone in to help for the future. Then at right back, we just signed Takeover Tomiyasu. Right, he is someone who can come here and play straight away, because he was loaned, because we loaned Hector in to allow space for him to come and feature straight away. That's the plan. That is the plan. But of course, it's up to Mikel if he plays or not. Okay. And then if you go to Nuno Tavares, he has the same characteristics, because we have Kieran Tierney there to play. We needed someone to cover for him. Okay. I don't need to look at Gary Neville's comments. Don't need to. Shrives says so they it's another question. So they are, if you like, at the moment, reserves. You can only really say Martin Odegaard and Ben White would be expected to be first team starters. So of the 6, only 2 will improve the team. Edu says we suffered last year because we lost players and we didn't really have good backups to play games. I believe we need a squad to win games. We need a squad to be in good position at the end of the season, because it is not only about the first 11. Again, we need a foundation. We need players to play, and then we need players to cover for the first 11. Now, let's put it in the right context, or into context. For example, in the midfield, you have Granit Xhaka and Thomas Partey. So far, for me, Mikel, for me and Mikel, it doesn't make sense to sign another player to be on top of them if they are the ones that are going to be playing. That is fucking not making sense, Edu. That is not making sense. How many midfielders? Donny van der Beek is rotting at the Manchester United bench. They have Fred, they have McTominay, they have Pogba. How many midfielders do Manchester City have? Chelsea, they brought in Saul Niguez. It doesn't make sense, Edu. It's a good explanation. I mean, like good PR, but not one that can really bite into my skin. Not really. That's why we chose Aubameyang Lokonga to help them. And I think Lokonga is going to be a starter, bro. I think Lokonga should be a starter. Definitely. If you go up, we have Alexander Lacazette, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Bukayo Saka, Nicola Pepe, and Gabriel Martinelli. I want to see them playing together. In the number 10 position, we saw a gap there because we just have Emile Smith-Rowe. We needed a number 10 with the same quality to be there, help, and play. Where we needed to spend big money, for me and Mikel, that was in the center back position, because we needed someone to fill that position. David Louis was leaving, and this was one where we needed someone to come here and straight away have an impact on the team with the right profile of what we believe for the short, medium, and long term. Okay, that was Ben White. That is why we went there and signed Ben White to give the squad what the squad needed. Okay, then thank you. So if you look at the incomings that Edu has made, signed Thomas Partey, 27 years of age, signed Martin Odegaard, signed Matt Ryan, signed Omar Rekik, signed Nuno Tavares, Aubameyang Lokonga, Odegaard on a permanent, Ramsdale, and Tomiyasu. If you look at these, all these, we only have 2 players above the age of 23. Above the age of 23. Okay. We still have more. The likes of Runason, Dani Ceballos, Gabriel, and a couple of others. couple of others. Really don't want to dive into that. I don't want to dive into that. Okay. Shares, another question for Edu. Do you understand though why Arsenal fans would prefer, say, if you spent 150 million to buy three oven-ready players who could go straight into the first team with maybe Premier League experience or certainly first team experience elsewhere that will improve the team now. As you know, right now the team has not scored a goal, has not registered a single point, and sits rock bottom of the Premier League. Edu says, I really understand that, but I would also like them to understand the reason and the direction we are going as a club. Look, you want the fans to understand the reason and direction, but there must be there must be rock bottom evidence that there is something you're trying to do. At the moment, you've signed players, but we do not see what you want to do. We do not see what exactly they want to do. So I'm not buying into the crap, and I'm buying into the bullshit at the moment, right? But he says, of course, it has hurt us to be in that situation. We are hurt. I am hurt. I don't want to see the club there, but I want to see the team playing together. To be fair, we've had 3 games, and I haven't seen the team playing together yet. So I want to see the signings, and I want to see the squad prepare. All 3 games we have played against Brentford, Chelsea, and Manchester City. Unfortunately, we had some difficult moments in terms of COVID and injuries. Excuses. You love excuses, Edu, just like Mikel, don't you? I want to see them play together, and then let's judge the team when they play together. Then after that, no problem, judge us then. You say judge us until the end of the window. If I'm to judge you, you did crap. I understand the situation we are in now. We understand the situation we are in now is really tough. It's not an excuse, but let's judge the team when they play together. Definitely, we will be very happy to judge the team when they play together, Edu. We'll be very happy to judge. How much is Mikel Arteta on board with the direction of the club? With the direction of the club is going, because any manager is judged on results. If I'm Arteta, I understand you are planning for the future, but if results don't improve, I could be down the road here. For example, go and get me a Romelu Lukaku, somebody like that. How much does he understand? And Eddie says the case here is we really believe in the players we have in the squad. Maybe other people don't, but we do. If we start to see the squad together, we believe in the squad. I sit with Mikel and we see the squad. We have a striker there who delivers to us up to 25 goals every single season. We have another one who delivers 15 to 20 goals every season. Wow. How does he see these things? I've known. Okay. We have 2 very powerful young players from the academy in Saka and Smith Rowe. We believe in them and our squad. Okay. So it looks like Arsenal is gonna be. If you look at the average ages. If you look at the average ages in the Premier League, Arsenal is going to have one of the youngest squads. Followed by Brentford, followed by Southampton. And our squad is going to be 25 years, 0.31. The oldest squad. If you look at Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester City, they are almost in the same region. And if you look at Chelsea, right, is this City? Their average age is 26.99. That means they are balanced, young, experienced, mid-term, short-term, long-term. I think that is the best strategy to go for. I don't think the best strategy is to pile a bunch of young kids. We are not FC Porto, because we do not have a Jose Mourinho. Right. Okay. Shiv says, as you know, Arteta is under immense pressure right now. Also, your own job has come under criticism. The criticism of you is you haven't done this job in Europe before and you do not know the European market. What do you say to that criticism? And also, what and when will it be where you can judge, where you can be judged for what you've done, your policy at the club? Definitely. And Eddie said, I respect all the pressure. I came in from Corinthians and then the Brazilian national team where there was unbelievable pressure just as here. No, bro. Come on. You're not buying players for the national team. And Corinthians is not Arsenal. It's not Brazilian league is not it's not European European football. So you do not talk about pressure there as at the same magnitude. I understand the fans, I understand the reason and accept that but we will need a bit of time to do what we plan to do. I know this type of work when we are talking about signings and needing patience has Arsenal fans a lot, but it is the reality. That's why when I say to you, we have to create a good foundation and create a good foundation and to create a good foundation, you need time. Is that an excuse or asking for more time? Jay says, but you don't get time in football, don't you? And Edu says, I know, but that's why you make the decisions. We believe in our squad now, but we believe this squad can be even stronger for the future. My job is to think about short term, but also the long term as well. How we are going to plan for that kind of journey, because if we now sign 1 or 2 players and we have 3, 4, or 5 gaps to fill, people are then going to look at us and say, guys, what are you doing? You've spent a lot of money on certain positions, but what about here, and here? The balance is not easy to get. But again, we believe in what we are doing. Talking about my role, I understand the pressure and I understand pressure on me, Mikel, the board, and the club, because the situation we are in now is absolutely unacceptable. Right. So that is Edu and his comments. It's been absolutely wonderful speaking to you on this podcast. Allow me call it the first. I've enjoyed myself. I didn't really think that doing it this way would give me a little bit, of a fresh mind, and I think it just did. So we're gonna be doing this on a daily. Make sure you tune in. I think we should do this. I'll be uploading this podcast on a daily basis at 4 p.m. Oh, 4 p.m. is way too late. 3 p.m. Let's do it 3 p.m. Right? So 3 p.m. we shall be having our beautiful podcast where we discuss all things Arsenal. All things Arsenal. Don't forget, it's called the Super Arsenal Podcast. Hi. The amazing Super Arsenal Podcast. And I'll speak to you in the next one. The next one, we will look at our best 11 because time just ran out. Love you so much. Let's meet on the other end.